Picture this. A young boy walks into his mother's kitchen and he hands her a note. The mother opens the note and as he begins to read it, his mother begins to cry. On the note it says, "Your son is a genius. He can no longer attend our school. Our school is too small and we do not have enough teachers to teach him. Please keep him home and teach him yourself." The young boy was saddened by these words, but his mother continued to feed onto his intellectual need. Years later, the man has become one of the greatest inventors of the century. His mother has passed on and he finds a note in her belongings. He opens up the note and on it he reads the words, "Your son is mentally ill. He cannot attend our school anymore. You have to keep him home." The young man read the words over and over again as he wept. But later he wrote in his journal, "Thomas Edison was a mentally ill child who later, by the grace of his mother, became one of the greatest inventors of the century." While this story may not be based on historical accuracy, the concept is one of fact. If you treat a child as if they are mentally ill, that child will remain mentally ill. However, if you treat a child as if they are something more, and amazing things can happen. This is the thought process behind inclusion, and what I'm going to be convincing you of today. Inclusion in the classroom is unmistakably the best choice. Before we begin talking about the advantages of inclusion, you may be asking yourself, what exactly is inclusion? Inclusion in the classroom involves taking a special needs child and placing them in a general education classroom. The services that this child needs are then brought to the child instead of the child being brought to the services. In convincing you of the necessity of inclusion, I'll not only be talking about the benefits for the disabled and special needs children, but also of the benefits for the non-disabled child, and also the things that could happen if we do not choose inclusion. There are many advantages of inclusion. Some of the most important include social skills, development, equal opportunity, and academic benefits. We'll look at social skills first. You may be asking yourself, why are social skills important? Well, according to the National Board of Special Education Services, social skills are one of the most important things to teach special needs students. However, interestingly enough, social skills are the #1 thing that are almost impossible to teach in a self-contained special education classroom. Consider this. Children in a self-contained classroom are only surrounded by children who lack the same social skills that they themselves are trying to achieve. However, if you take this same child and place them in a general education classroom, they are able to be surrounded by typically developing students, and they can achieve these social skills themselves. Children mimic by nature, and if you allow them to be in the classroom with typically developing students, they will pick up on the skills. Well-developed social skills are important to help children to succeed in school, maintain positive friendships, and explore adult roles such as employee, further education, community members, and even to interact positively with family members. According to the California Board of Education, studies have shown that inclusive environments allow children to achieve more than they do in segregated environments. When children are given equal opportunities and are included with typically developing children, they strive to new goals and achievements, often attaining levels that surprise caregivers, teachers, and parents. I have first-hand experience with inclusive classrooms, and one of the stories sticks out most in my mind. We'll call this child Allison. Allison was brought to me and she was nearing 4 years old. She could not speak. She had very little verbal skills at all. She often pointed and grunted at things. She had just learned how to walk at 4 years old. Upon her enrollment, me and the other teachers got together and we decided what her education plan would be. We decided right then and there that we would treat her exactly the same as the other students. She was interacted with the same, asked the same questions, and held to the same standards. As the year progressed, you could see an amazing difference in her. At the beginning of the year, she stayed secluded from the other students. She stayed close to the teachers. She wasn't talking. She ate the crayons through them, ran around the classroom. By the end of the year, this child was amazing. Her therapist, everyone just kept talking about how much she had progressed and how much farther she had achieved than children with her exact same disability who were not in an inclusive environment. Now I'll let you decide for yourself, but in my opinion, these accomplishments would not have been possible had she not been in an inclusive environment. Now that we've looked at the advantages of disabled students, let's take a look at the advantages for the non-disabled students. Many people look at inclusion and immediately think of what the advantages are for the special needs students. However, that's just not the case. There are many advantages for the non-disabled students as well, including social skills, understanding and acceptance, and long-lasting friendships. You may be asking yourself, why are these advantages important? Without inclusion, these non-disabled children are not able to, if they were segregated away from the disabled students, they would not even get to meet them. These friendships would not happen. We're creating empathetic adults of the future, and they are able to look at these disabled students in a different way as their peers instead of as a segregated peers. There are very little disadvantages to inclusion. In fact, Sarah Mueller in the book People Are People stated that there are no known studies to any disadvantages to inclusion. And even if you could think of a few disadvantages, the benefits greatly outweigh them. For example, if your thought was that the teachers had very little time for the non-disabled students, you could turn that around and say that while the teacher is working with the disabled children, that non-disabled students are able to learn empathy, they're able to learn patience and understanding. All of these are great life skills. However, even though I've shown you all the data and all the studies, let's pretend for a moment that we do not allow inclusion. If we did not allow inclusion, it would be a great disadvantage to the students. They would be ripped of the opportunity to develop these social skills. There would be emotional damage as they were ostracized from the general population in their classroom, and the students may not receive their highest potential. Non-disabled students will also miss out on important life skills. Throughout this presentation, I've been trying to convince you that inclusion is the best choice, not only for the children, but also for the non-disabled children, for their teachers, for their parents, and for their families. However, after this presentation, I hope you take it one step further. Inclusion in the classroom should not be the best choice. Inclusion in the classroom should be the only choice.